This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. Would the Browns still trade Sheduer Sanders even though there's no chance that they're going to be able to get somebody like a Brendan Sorsby to replace him? That's a question a lot of people have been asking with the Sheduer trade rumors bubbling up. And then right after that, the Brendan Sorsby story pops and it turns out he's not even going to be in the supplemental draft. A lot of people are taking that as that means the Browns won't be able or willing to trade Sheduer Sanders, but I don't know if it necessarily works that way. I think for the too long didn't read version of this video, the possibility of the Browns trading Sheduer Sanders has much more to do about what other NFL teams are willing to offer Cleveland than if Cleveland has the willingness to do it. If the price is right for Sheduer Sanders for Cleveland, in my personal opinion, you could disagree with this, you could think that the Browns feel differently, but from what I've gathered, I think the right price for the Browns to move off of Sheduer would probably be a 4th round pick outright. So if somebody offers Cleveland a 4th round pick, I think the Browns would trade Sheduer. I don't think it matters that they can't get Brendan Sorsby anymore. I don't think it matters that they won't have an immediate replacement for him. I think given how the Browns have structured this quarterback room, it makes it pretty clear to me that if somebody was willing to offer them a positive asset for one of the players in this competition, they would do it. Now, look, this isn't me saying I think the Browns should no doubt trade Sheduer Sanders for a 4th round pick if somebody offers. I see no harm in waiting until we get through the training camp and preseason to really see if there is something there with Sheduer. I'm in no rush to trade him, me personally. But if you're asking me to put my Andrew Berry hat on and see through Andrew Berry's lens, which doesn't always agree with what I think the Browns should do, and based on what I know about Andrew Berry, I think it's very possible that if somebody offered him the right value, that he would do it. The question is, does anybody want to offer a 4th round pick to get Sheduer Sanders? And I think that's where it starts to get a lot more questionable. Like, I don't think the market is there for somebody to offer a 4th round pick or something like that for Sheduer Sanders. But we'll talk more about could he still be traded, what this room is, and really to understand why the Browns would be willing to make such a move, understanding the reason this room is put together in the first place. But first, I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game is going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 475 yards. Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. See, the reason it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns traded Sheduer, somebody offers them a 4th round pick or something like that, is twofold. It's one, when you think about the answer to this question, why is the quarterback competition between Deshaun Watson and Sheduer Sanders? That's the first part of this that makes it obvious to me that they would probably be okay with making a move there. And the reason that's the case is the reason why this quarterback competition is Sheduer Sanders versus Deshaun Watson isn't because the Browns felt like that's the best quarterback room they could put together. It's simply not, right? The Browns probably felt like they could maybe get better quarterback play if they were willing to spend a little bit more money. But the problem right now with Cleveland is that they're not willing to spend money right now at the quarterback position. Look at the history at quarterback over the last 5 seasons with Cleveland and their willingness to spend the money at the position versus what it's been the last 2 years, right? In 2022, they bring in $230 million guaranteed for Deshaun Watson. But they also signed to, I think, about a $6 million deal for 1 year Jacoby Brissett to be able to hold down the fort while Deshaun Watson was out. And the thinking was, hey, we think that we're going to be a competitive team. And if Deshaun Watson comes back and he's rolling in 2022, we might be able to be a Super Bowl contender. So we need somebody who can steady the boat for while he's suspended. So we're going to be willing to spend a little bit of money there at quarterback on top of what we've already spent for Deshaun Watson. Now, 2023 comes around and the Browns didn't really spend that much money on quarterback outside of Deshaun Watson because the belief was Deshaun was going to be fully healthy. He was going to be back from his suspension a full year. We were going to get franchise level quarterback play. So why would we have to invest in backup quarterback when we're finally getting what we're paying for in 2023 with Deshaun Watson? And then he gets hurt. They end up spending some money to bring in Joe Flacco, but that really was on a vet minimum. So didn't spend much outside of Watson, but that was the peak year of the Browns' investment in Deshaun Watson. And then you look at 2024, and the Browns brought in for $8 million and up to $16 million Jameis Winston on a very incentive-heavy deal where they were willing to spend some money there in 2024. But 2025 was a little different, right? The Browns signed Joe Flacco. It's like a $3 million deal there. And then they brought in Kenny Pickett on a rookie contract, cost controlled, swapped him out with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. The investment was very low in 2025. I remember talking to Daniel Afuise about this during the 2025 season, and he had mentioned to me that the Browns had other quarterback options in mind, but ultimately decided that they didn't want to spend that much money on the position. So they just went with Kenny Pickett, and they just went with Joe Flacco. Also, at the same time, the Browns had publicly declared the Watson experiment as a failure. So at that point, all the money that they spent on Watson is not looked at as an investment that they're going to plan on recouping. It's just kind of sunk cost at that point. And Watson was going to be out for the rest of the year anyways. And now Watson wasn't on. So also Watson wasn't scheduled to play that year, right? But the Browns really didn't feel like investing in money in the quarterback room in 2025. And you look at this 2026 room, and it's not a room that's been assembled because they think this is the best room they can put together. It's a room that's been assembled because it's cheap, it's convenient, and it allows them the most flexibility to solve their quarterback problem in the future, right? The Browns did not want to get tied up with any kind of a long-term deal for a quarterback. That's why they weren't really in on Sam Darnold a couple of years ago. They didn't want to do that. The Browns don't want to tie up draft assets in a potential quarterback solution right now because they want those options to be available to them in 2027. They also are being very cost conscious about what the number is on this quarterback room because they're trying to push this Watson contract down the road, off the books, off the shoulders of this team, just in case something becomes available later on. Basically, the Browns dug themselves into a giant hole with Deshaun Watson in that contract. They realized after the 2024 season that they did dig that giant hole and that there was no getting out of it with Deshaun Watson. And they spent the last 2 years trying to make sure that that hole doesn't grow and that they're in a position to jump out of that hole come 2027. So the competition between Deshaun Watson and Sheduer doesn't exist because they think that's the best two options that they could have to start at quarterback this year. That competition exists because Deshaun Watson is going to be here no matter what. He has to be a part of the competition, and Sheduer's contract is cheap, it's flexible, and it requires no commitment, so why not give him a shot? The Browns aren't having this quarterback competition because they value these guys or see a big future in any of them. They just value the convenience that these two options provide them at this point as far as solving that problem in the future. If they get lucky with one of these two guys, they would obviously take that, right? If Sheduer shows out, becomes a franchise quarterback, the Browns aren't going to say no to that, obviously, right? They would be stupid to say no to that. But they're not anticipating it. They're not expecting it. They're not really even building towards that being the possibility. They're just going to see what happens here with this quarterback room, with the knowledge in the back of their head that no matter what happens this year, they're in a flexible spot at quarterback to be able to solve the problem long term in the offseason with a draft pick, with money, with draft assets, with a trade, something like that. You ever wondered why the Browns have drafted so many quarterbacks over the last couple of years in the late rounds? It's because they're cheap. And the Browns need cheap quarterbacks right now. The Browns aren't trying to invest a ton of money at the position. The reason that's important, right? The reason that it's important that we understand that this room is not the way it is because they actually believe in these two. That this room is the way that it is because these two options were cheap and cost effective to Cleveland. The more you can understand the lack of commitment that they actually have to each individual. If they could ship off Deshaun Watson for a 5th-round pick and it didn't cost them a ton of money, they would do it, right? And if somebody calls the Browns and say, hey, look, you spent a 5th-round pick on Sheduer. How about you get a whole round ahead on that selection right now? We'll give you a 4th-round pick right now. The Browns would absolutely do it. There's no doubt in my mind that Andrew Berry would do it. It makes even more sense when you consider the entire reason that Sheduer was drafted by Cleveland was in hopes of getting something like that, right? Like the thought process from Andrew Berry at the time was to bring in Sheduer, see if you could develop him a little bit, maybe make him an attractive trade asset. Maybe he becomes your quarterback, but maybe there's a chance that you could flip this into something more valuable down the line, was the whole proposition of the selection of Sheduer Sanders. And if somebody offers Andrew Berry the chance to make money on that flip, he's going to take it. That's why there were trade rumors last year during camp about Sheduer Sanders. That's why there's trade rumors now. Now, I think that's the basis of it. I think when you hear Jeremy Fowler talk about it, he makes it seem like the Browns don't trust him to be a backup. I don't think that's the case. I think that's what the bullshit they're going to try to sell us if they do trade him is, oh, well, we didn't want him to be the backup. We wanted to give Deshaun. I think that's bullshit, though. I think they know that he could be a backup. I think it's obvious that Sheduer is capable of being a backup. And honestly, anybody that trades a 4th-round pick for him is probably going to make him the backup anyways. So I don't really buy that whole logic from like Fowler and that it's about Sheduer's inability to be a backup. He was a backup last year. He was fine, right? Like it was fine. He didn't disrupt the team. I don't think that's why. I think it's just value, right? If somebody offers the Browns positive value for Sheduer Sanders, they will make that trade, which is exactly why the Browns traded Joe Flacco last year, right? Not because they were looking to ship Joe Flacco off or they didn't think he was capable of being a backup. It's because they value Joe Flacco at a certain place and somebody offered more than what they felt like that value was for Joe Flacco, and then they shipped them off. The same thing happened to Kenny Pickett last year, right? This quarterback room is not here because they're committed to these guys to be the future. This quarterback room is actually in place because of the opposite, because the Browns want no commitment for the quarterback room when it comes to the future. Honestly, this quarterback room has been assembled for the exact opposite reason, right? It's because these guys aren't going to be people that they feel like they're going to have to commit to or commit money to. It's because they're cheap, they're affordable, and they allow the Browns maximum flexibility at the quarterback position as far as the future goes. They didn't want to spend money that would tie them up in the future. They didn't want to spend draft assets that would tie them up in the future. They want a room that allows them flexibility and affordability. And that's what this room is. It's flexible and it's affordable. And part of that flexibility is we could trade anybody except for Deshaun Watson because of his contract for positive assets at any time. I find it hilarious that people think that Andrew Berry, of all people, will not trade somebody. Just period. Andrew Berry will trade anybody. I made the joke on Twitter. Andrew Berry would literally trade you his twin brother if you offered him a 3rd-round pick, right? Like, the price, everybody has a price, right? It's the old $1 million man catchphrase, but that stands for Andrew Berry. Everybody on the roster has a price that you can come get for that player. The Myles Garrett trade proved that. Andrew had a price, the Rams matched it, Myles gone. The franchise player, the most marketable player on the team, gone because somebody met the price. If that's true for Miles, it's true for everybody else on the roster. Everybody has a price. If somebody comes knocking and they have the price for Sheduer in their hand and they're willing to offer that to Andrew Berry will trade him. The big question isn't would Andrew Berry trade Sheduer Sanders. The big question is, does anybody else in the NFL actually want to offer what it takes to trade for Sheduer Sanders? And that's where I think the answer is no, right? I don't think any other team is willing to spend a 4th-round pick to get Sheduer Sanders right now. I think what NFL teams want to spend on Sheduer is a 7th-round pick, is a 6th-round pick, or some kind of pick swap that involves picks of those caliber, right? That's what I think the NFL is willing to spend for Sheduer and willing to value Sheduer at. I think the Browns value him at a 4th-round pick, and I think that dissonance of value is going to keep Sheduer on the roster because ultimately Andrew Berry has also proved that he's not just going to trade somebody if he doesn't feel like the value is there. And I think he thinks the value for Sheduer is a 4th-round pick. I think he thinks eventually he will be able to get a 4th-round pick out of Sheduer, and he's not going to sell short on that value just because it might come with a public outcry or more media attention than that. That's not how Andrew moves. Andrew don't care about none of that. We've been through this before. So if we're wondering about the Sheduer trade rumors, will they still happen? The answer is yeah, probably. They're still going to happen. And they're probably going to get louder, especially if Sheduer does something positive, but the Browns are still looking to move on in 2027. This is just going to be a thing, right? But the real question, again, isn't the Browns' willingness to do it. The Browns will absolutely always be willing to trade somebody if the price is available in the market. The question is more, are other NFL teams at a place where they would want to do this? And that's where I think the trade rumors die with Sheduer. I don't think any other NFL team is willing to pay the price that Andrew Berry has set. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.